Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call, and I'm joined today by my brother, the Gritty Broman. How are you, Brent?
I'm well. Thank you.
Right on. So today we're just going to do a quick Q&A on a few questions we've received. One of the questions right off the bat that we got was on boot dryers. So I made a post a couple days back on Instagram talking about the new boot dryers that were produced by our buddy over at Graxaw. Graxaw sells our game bags. They've been a partner of ours for quite a while.
Almost a year and a half now.
No, like 2.5.
Has it been that long?
Yeah. We had our Graxaw. The first time I used Graxaw game bags was way back with the first bear films we created with Jeff Lusk and Lampers.
That's right.
So it was the three of us filming. We're going to have a little reunion this year, by the way. Lusk says he's in. He can't go another season without hunting with Ryan and I. So hopefully that's the case and he doesn't bail on us.
Yeah.
Because Lusk is awesome. He's an awesome dude. It was so fun hunting with him. I have such fond memories of that trip where we killed Chocolate Thunder. You know, we had Red Lightning. We had the whole, it was just a blast. That was such an epic hunt. 3 bears in 30 minutes or something.
And Jeff, this is in no way Brian trying to pressure you into going on a bear hunt.
But on that hunt, we used the Graxaw game bags. Mm-hmm. Ryan brought some for me to try out. They were 6 ounces, just a little tiny set of game bags.
They're the size of your thumb. They're tiny.
Well,
they roll up.
Yeah, they're tiny. They're one bag about the size of your thumb. Uh-huh. So there's like 5 or 6 of them in there. All the bags you need for deer, elk, bears. They're boned out meat bags, which is what we specialize in, is backpacking. And so we put bone meat in with bones in them, but you have to be careful because the bags aren't meant for to withstand sharp edges, but they are meant to withstand weight and pressure. It's like they're sewn tight and they're tough, and you can fill those bags up with tons of meat. Hang them up in the tree. They have these long tassels, part of the cinch straps, and we've beat the crap out of them. You bring them home, you wash them again. So they're an excellent game bag. They're lightweight. They're just not built for like sharp objects and bones inside of them, which for us is not a big deal. They're just so compact and light at the same time. They're nice. They keep the flies out. They seal tight and they hang well in the trees. You don't have to bring separate rope because the tassels are so long. Although we do, so that we can get our bear meat up really high when we're in bear country.
It's a good move.
Bear season is coming up here real soon, so you should get yourself some of these game bags if you're interested.
And the boot dryer.
And the boot dryer. So let's talk about the boot dryer. So Austin is our buddy who owns Graxaw, and he just started making these bags like out of his garage. He had an idea, so he started making those, and we've been in love with those. He's kind of a tinkerer, an engineer type guy, and so then he jumped into making the boot dryers because I said I talked about it that I have hyperhidrosis, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, sweaty feet,
sweaty hands, like really bad. And it turns out there's a lot of dudes out there with the same problem. And you get super sweaty feet like me, especially adrenaline, like a deer or an elk walks out or, I get adrenaline, I get pumped, I get jacked.
You sweat a lot when it's hot because I don't.
No.
Okay. But.
If I do, I don't notice it. Like heat doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
The way it bothers Ryan.
I get a sweaty back when it's hot outside, but like my hands and my feet don't sweat because it's hot.
I think I'm very equipped for handling like extremely hot temperatures, and I enjoy hot temperatures, and I can hike and run and climb no problem in hot temperatures. I hate cold, but I do it because I love hunting and big bucks and the rut, and all that. So it's funny when we're in Arizona and I'm crawling around in the desert with a pair of stockings on and getting sunburnt. I'm in the zone, man. And Ryan's like, it's like 65. This is horrible. And I'm like, can it get up to 90 today? Yeah. Please, 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 please. So I love the heat. But I think, so I sweat though. I sweat a lot and my feet get really sweaty, and it's been a problem, especially in late season. So I like to use a full grain leather boot. I've talked about this in earlier podcasts, but it's come up again, so I'll just bring it up again. I like to wear like the Crispy Nevada or the Wild Rock when it gets really cold, the Crispy Wild Rock. Both of those boots are full grain leather. I get them both insulated. When it's August, September, I like the uninsulated Nevada. It's a favorite boot of mine. I just like the stability and the comfort that I get from that full grain leather. It forms to my foot. I have Hobbit feet, they're big, wide, square things. They just feel good. And then you throw the sheep feet inserts in there, like I've talked about before. And it's hard to beat that setup. So the problem I experience is when it's summertime or whatever, it's like you sweat, your boot gets a little sweaty. I take my feet out, and I'll air out my socks multiple times a day. I'll bring different pairs of socks so I can cool them off. But at night, if I really want my boot to dry, the temperature outside in the spring is warm enough. If I just get airflow going and the sun is out, like I'll dry out the inside of my boots if I have a little boot dryer. The problem, though, is in the wintertime, it's really bad because I sweat the same. The inside of the boot gets so wet after 4 days, let's say, just climbing and hiking and sweating and adrenaline, and there's the animal and the adrenaline gush, and my boots and socks get soaked. And when it's 10 degrees outside, your boot will not dry out unless you have the right equipment to dry it out. Synthetic boots, or boots that aren't insulated especially, they'll dry out just from the ambient heat from around it, like in a teepee with a stove. They'll dry out. But a full grain leather boot really doesn't. And an insulated boot has a hard time drying out, especially if it's all leather and Gore-Tex lined and all of that. So that's when Austin put this boot dryer together, and I showed it in an earlier gear podcast. I'm supposed to get the new one in the mail, but haven't got it yet.
If you're watching this, I'll throw up some pictures.
Yeah. So the boot dryer is just like 2 discs that fit in the top of the boot. Mm-hmm. They're super like tiny little discs with fans, and those fans run on my Dark Energy, this is a Dark Energy charger, Poseidon. Somebody asked what charger we use. We tend to bring these Dark Energy chargers, but we've been messing around with other ones. I actually have a Sony FS5 video camera, and that Sony FS5 has these giant battery blocks that have a USB port in them. And lately I've been just packing that thing. And I think they're like $200 or $300, but it'll charge everything for 12 days or whatever. Recharge my phone many, many times. It's a brick. It's a little bit heavy. It's like 4 Dark Energies. Mm-hmm. But the other times I'll bring 2 or 3 Dark Energies if it's for a shorter trip, and I'll leave the brick at home, the Sony battery, camera battery. I want something that's reliable, and these 2 setups have been reliable. I used to carry other ones. Like I had an Anker charger for a while. I swear, they would break, and you'd get out there with a brick that you thought was fully charged, and it was, but then it just decides not to work. It happened over and over. And then I'm carrying this giant piece of heavy gear that didn't even work. And I can't afford to run out of juice.
Yep.
When I'm running OnX on my phone, and I got a Garmin InReach and other things I need to be able to use throughout the day, plus my camera batteries. So the Dark Energy, though, I'll plug the boot dryer into this. And what I found works really well, I take my boots. When Ryan and I set up the teepee, we get the stove going, and the heat kind of rises up to the top of the teepee. And what I'll do is I'll set up my tripod and get it up toward the peak of the teepee, and I'll take my boots and I'll hang them off the tripod, because the heat from the stove rises, and I don't want my boots too close because they're leather, and I don't want them to dry out, like really quickly. I need them to be warm, but not to where they melt the glue or any of that. Mm-hmm. Plus, heating them up on the outside only ruins your boot. It does, and it doesn't even dry the inside.
If it's full grain leather, it could just warp it.
It's a good way to wreck your boot. So by putting them up a little bit higher above the stove, and a little bit above midway inside the teepee, and hanging them up like that, and then putting the boot dryer in there, which is just these tiny little fans that run off my Dark Energy. I just hang that on the tripod. the heat from the stove is circulating inside the teepee, and up high is where the best heat is. And the fans are blowing that warm air from the stove, from the wood stove, blowing that warm air into the boots, and they just start drying. They start airing out. And we usually, make dinner, hang out, talk. It depends on what time of year. Late season, the nights are long, so we might watch a video or a movie or something that we pre-downloaded. We'll hang out, read a book, whatever, just because it's 5:30, and it doesn't get light till 7:00 the next day, But other times, even if the days are shorter, you're still running the stove for about 30 minutes to an hour or longer. So I get them going right when I get in. I take my boots off, cuddle up in my sleeping bag, start making dinner and everything. And in the morning when I wake up, we get the stove going and I just turn the fan back on. And so in the morning, my boots are also getting warm in the morning. And as they're airing out, by the time we leave after we've been up about an hour, I basically am slipping on a pair of dry, warm boots, like really dry and quite warm. So if it's 10 degrees outside and you're slipping on a warm boot, it's a game changer. You lace those things up and you step outside. Even though it's cold, those insulated boots being dry and warm, you're starting off right away without cold feet. It's almost, even if your boot's not damp at all, it sure is nice on those cold temps to be able to run your boot dryer just so you can put on a warm boot. Now, some people bring footbeds that you shake, like hot hands, slip them in there. Those can help get your boot a little bit warm. They don't work as well as this setup. Plus, if they get wet, it doesn't fix anything. The other thing that's nice is you have insurance. Let's say you're back there, 20 miles, 15 miles, whatever it is, in gnarly conditions, and you slip and fall in a creek because you're crossing and your boot goes underwater and fills with water. Well, on a typical hunt without the boot dryer, you're hosed. Like, it's really difficult to dry out a boot that gets that wet without some kind of airflow pushing the heat inside and giving the moisture a place to go. Otherwise, you just keep getting the outside of your boot warm, but it just won't dry out inside. I'll pull my sheep feed inserts out and I'll set them down next to the boot dryer, next to, the stove so they dry out. That helps, but the rest of the boot will stay wet. The insulation inside kind of gets wet, and the Thinsulate, whatever it is, and you're just screwed. So it's nice having the boot dryer just in case that happens. And if you're going with a buddy, you don't need two boot dryers. You can actually share the same boot dryer back and forth. Especially if your nights are long.
It's not like they weigh a lot. They weigh 3.5 ounces.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is it's such a lightweight piece of kit. It's hard to justify leaving them at home at this point, and they're so useful. I've been surprised why people haven't built these before and haven't used them in the past. Like, it seems, but I guess, a backcountry hunter has his unique needs. And some people, I think, I don't think a lot of people, to be truthful, I don't think a lot of people have engaged in backcountry late season hunts where they actually live back there for 12, 14 days in a row. You'll have someone bomb up for 3 days or 4 days or go in on horseback with lots of gear. But, I think there's a new trend beginning where people are seeing that you can go back there. It can be negative degrees, 10 degrees, -5, and you're not going to die. You've got a teepee and a stove, which is a game changer. You got the fire going, raging inside. You can dry out your gear. If it does get wet, nobody's going to die out there. Heat is such a big deal. You can melt water and stuff on the stove. You can melt snow. It's a different thing, and I think a lot of people are now dealing with that. And in that situation, you kind of need a boot dryer, especially if you got sweaty feet like me, and if you get cold feet. I loved being able to throw on warm boots. That whole mule deer hunt that we just published, that we just shared with Ryan and I, and then Paley on getting her first mule deer. I had those boot dryers on that trip, and it was cold. Really cold, and that wind will just freeze your feet. You put a wet, frozen boot on in the morning, and instantly you're at a disadvantage. Your feet mine just can't seem to get warm after that. And then you got wind and ice and stuff just blowing. You're walking through snow after you've put your boot inside an ice cold block of ice. It's like, I just can't seem to get them warm. Not unless we really hike. And on hunts like that, you're kind of just going a little bit and glassing all day. It's miserable. So my other trick though is to bring a few of those foot warmers that you can slip in your boots. And on a 10-day hunt, I'll bring like 8, because to me, it's worth bringing those things for when your feet get really cold. So I apologize if this is kind of new for some of you, but Austin just came out with the brand new design that he's actually selling. I was just using a prototype. Mm-hmm. So you can now go over to Graxaw and purchase the boot warmers, and you can get game bags, and they're a partner of ours. So if you do use the code GRITTY, and that helps us out, we get a discount. We get a kickback. You get a discount, and it's a win-win for Austin, us, and everybody.
Austin's a little engineer, and he's got some other stuff in the works. If you go on the website, he's got some little sneak peeks of some things he's working on.
I think there's a demand for this, and a lot of people
definitely
texted me and stuff and said, "Yep, we want to check it out." And we're talking about boots. Check out Sheep Feet and use the GRITTY code there too, and you get a discount on the custom orthotics. And I've said it many times. I'll say it on every show. Most of them, go check them out, because they make a sweet custom orthotic. And I've been using them, the 3/4 length ones or the half length, in my running shoes and my workouts and stuff. And it's been making all the difference. And I wear the full length in like this crispy tennis shoe right here. This is kind of my lounge around shoe. And I wear this full length one here, and it's got this heel deal. These things are just molded to my feet. And then I got some in my boots, and I'm thrilled with how much of a difference it's made. So check that out. All right, that's it for today's episode. Nice and short. Don't forget to use the code GRITTY at Mountain Ops and at Peaks. Both of those guys are big supporters of the show. Get yourself some trekking poles, some gaiters, and if you're in the market and you need some energy boost, I might recommend some Pink Lemonade, Ignite, or the Blaze Shots. I just like the old-timey berry original flavor of the Blaze Shots, but they do have like 5 flavors right now with pineapple, and they've got peach mango, and
raspberry.
Yeah, the blue.
I think they have just a straight peach.
The blue raspberry tastes like an Airhead candy,
Yeah.
They're all different, and people have different ones they like. It's kind of like a 5-hour energy, Chad Mendez says he likes to drink half of one before he goes and spars and everything, and then finish the other half when he's done. It's a bit of a booster, so check that out. And anyway, thanks for tuning in. Stay gritty.